Alright guys, welcome back to this video. We're going to talk about key features in this video. So as you can see, I already have a quadratic function graphed out here, and I might be asked for some key features such as the vertex of that graph. I might also be asked to identify the x-intercepts. Also known as the solutions or the roots or the zeros. All those three things also mean the x-intercepts. Also might be asked to give the y-intercept. And the end behavior. I might also get asked for the interval of decreasing. And you can imagine if I'm asked for that, I might also be asked to give the interval of increasing. And two more things. I might be asked to give the interval of positive intervals of positive if there's more than one. And the interval or intervals of negative. All right, stay with me here because I know this is a lot, okay? But I don't have to do any adding or subtracting, multiplying, dividing, none of that. I just have to look at this graph and identify all of these things from the graph. They're all right there on the graph. So it's basically just reading it right off the page here, okay? So we're going to start with the vertex. Remember that the vertex is always right in the middle of the graph. Okay, so I'm just going to look at either the highest or the lowest point of that graph, and that's going to be my vertex. Here I have a vertex at negative 4, 2. We can also call that the minimum or lowest point of this graph. My x-intercepts is simply where it crosses the x-axis. So there and there, at 0, 0, and 4, 0. Those are my two x-intercepts. My y-intercept is simply where it crosses the y-axis. Well, we can see it's crossing the y-axis right here. And so it's going to be the same as one of our x-intercepts. It's going to be 0, 0. End behavior. When I'm looking at the end behavior of a quadratic, it's really easy to remember that positive people smile and negative people frown. So if I have something that looks like a smiley face, then I know that I have positive end behavior. If it looks like a frowny face, then it's negative end behavior. So this end behavior is positive. If I'm given end behavior this way, as x approaches negative infinity, f of x approaches what? And as x approaches infinity, f of x approaches what? If I have positive in behavior, I'm always going to just put in positive infinity in both of these. So f of x approaches positive infinity. F of x approaches positive infinity. They're going to go the same way because you can see that both of my arrows on the end of my graph are pointing up. They're both going up. If I had a frowny face, my end behavior would be negative, and so as x approached both negative infinity and infinity, f of x would be approaching negative infinity for both of them. They're always going to go the same way for a quadratic function because it always ends going the same way. So either they're both positive or they're both negative. The way I can tell is if it's a smiley or frowny face. Okay? Moving on, the interval of decreasing. If I look at my graph here, my interval of decreasing is going to be this area right here, where it's going down. Now, of course, it starts going down up here where I can't see, way back at negative infinity. So it's been going down for a long time. Now, we always talk about intervals in terms of x. Okay? So it stops decreasing at where x is equal to 2. It stops decreasing right here at my vertex, or my minimum. That's the lowest point, right? And so from negative infinity to 2, that is my interval of decreasing. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to correct something that I did earlier. And I'm sure you've probably been screaming at me this whole video that I got this wrong. And you're right, I did get that wrong. My vertex is actually 2, negative 4. I switched my x and y's, didn't I? So my vertex is 2, negative 4. So I apologize. So we can go back and fix that. 2, negative 4 is my vertex. I had written that backwards. So now let's talk about interval of increasing. Now that we have that corrected, interval of decreasing, we started at negative infinity and we went all the way to 2. Again, that's the x of 2. We always look at interval of increasing and decreasing going left to right. From going left to right. So looking at interval of increasing, looking from left to right, it's going to be that section right there for interval of increasing. Okay? So it's going to go starting at 2, that minimum point of 2, and it's going to go from 2 all the way to infinity. From 2 all the way to infinity. Because it's going to go up forever and ever, as far as we know, because it's ending going off the graph to the right, going up. Okay, we just have a couple more. And that's the interval of positive and negative. The interval or intervals of positive is where it's above the x-axis. So I'm going to look for where it's above the x-axis. All right, so here's my x-axis here. And it's above the x-axis right here and right here. Okay? So it started being above the x-axis way back here at negative infinity, and then it crosses the x-axis at our first x-intercept, which is 0, 0. So from negative infinity until we get to an x of 0, it's positive. Ignore the fact that it looks like Mr. Krabs right now. We have one more interval of positive. All right? We see that it dips below the x-axis right here. And then it jumps back up above the x-axis right there at our other x-intercept of 4, 0. So it starts being positive again at 4. And again, as far as we can tell from this graph, it's not going to go back below the x-axis that we can tell. So it's going to be above the x-axis for infinity. And then the last but not least is our interval of negative. And again, interval of negative is just where it's below the x-axis. So it's this down here. That's where it's negative, below the x-axis. All right? And it starts being below the x-axis, again, at our first x-intercept, which is 0, 0. So we're going to use the x from that, which is 0. And it's going to go back above the x-axis at our other x-intercept, which is 4. You should always have matching numbers for your intervals of positive and negative. Wherever an interval of positive stops or starts, you should have an interval of negative stopping or starting. Same thing for increasing and decreasing. Wherever it stops decreasing, it should start increasing, and vice versa. All right, so that's all of our key features. Go ahead and do your practice problems, and we'll see you in the next video.